There's that feeling, right? Maybe you've had it or you definitely worry about it. You log into your banking app or maybe open up that paper statement and your stomach just drops. You might have had a number in your head, sort of, but the actual figure, what you owe, it's way bigger. Our source material for this deep dive, it's a really sharp guide from SideBySide called Avoiding the Credit Card Trap, and it starts right there with that exact feeling. It kicks off with Asha, she's a marketing exec, and she's staring at, well, a staggering R's, $315,000 in credit card debt. And it started like it does for so many people, a swipe here for coffee, a tap there for groceries, but it just snowballed, became this massive weight. Aisha's story, well, sadly, it's not exactly rare. Millions, literally millions, find themselves caught in similar situations.
That's so true. It's a very common scenario.
And these cards, they're sold to us as like freedom, right? Convenience, maybe even a bit of status. But Aisha's example just shows instantly how fast they can turn from a handy tool into a real significant trap. So our mission today in this deep dive is to really pull apart this guide from SideBySide. We want to unpack it, get those key insights out, help you understand the challenge, see how the trap actually works, and crucially, find some solid strategies for using credit smartly, keeping it as a tool, not letting it become a burden.
Exactly. And the SideBySide guide, it lays it all out really well. It looks at the history, gets into the psychology, the mechanics of how people actually get caught up. It breaks down the real costs, not just money, but emotional costs too. And then, offers proven ways out, backed by real stories. It's about knowing what you're dealing with.
Information is power here. So to really get how we fall into this trap, maybe it helps to look back a bit. Where did these things even come from, this little plastic card?
Well, they weren't always everywhere like they are now. The guide traces it back to the 1950s in the U.S. The first one was the Diners Club card, a universal charge card, mainly for restaurants and travel-specific places. Then a big leap in '66 with the first real bank card, Bank AmeriCard. That's basically what evolved into Visa today.
Ah, okay. So it started kind of niche, like a club thing, and then things took off.
Oh, absolutely. Took off is right. The 80s and 90s saw a huge explosion. Banks got really aggressive with marketing. Cards became way more common globally, too. Then the 2000s hit, bringing the whole digital age, online shopping, mobile payments, these massive global networks. Suddenly using a card anywhere, anytime, for almost anything. It just became incredibly simple.
And that ease, that simplicity, it's led to just mind-boggling numbers, hasn't it?
Massive scale. The guide mentions over 2.8 billion credit cards floating around worldwide today. Just think about that number.
Wow, 2.8 billion. And the guide brings it closer to home, too, mentioning its spread in South Asia.
Yes, definitely. They're a fixture now in big urban centers, Karachi, Mumbai, Dhaka, places like that, especially common for middle and upper income families.
Which makes total sense when you think about what they promise, right? That initial appeal, convenience, obviously, no need for cash, that little bit of prestige, maybe, and those rewards, cashback, points, travel perks, they can be really tempting.
And that's a really critical point the guide makes. That exact convenience, the sheer ease of just tapping or swiping, that's what lets it become a financial crutch. It makes spending money you don't physically have right now almost too easy.
Okay, so that leads us right into the core of this deep dive, understanding the trap itself. How does the guide actually define this credit card trap?
Fundamentally, it's that cycle. You borrow, then you only make the minimum payment required, interest starts building up, compounding, and before you know it, you're stuck under this mountain of long-term debt that feels, well, almost impossible to climb out of.
Right, and the guide breaks down the specifics of how people get pulled in. What are some of those main mechanisms?
Probably the sneakiest one is what they call the minimum payment illusion. Paying just that small amount feels doable, right? And technically, your account stays current. But the guide clearly shows how this lets the interest just quietly, relentlessly pile up month after month after month. Another big one is impulse spending. It's just so easy. Swipe, tap, click. The barrier to buying something you hadn't planned for is just much, much lower than if you had to pull out cash.
Yeah, it almost doesn't feel like real money sometimes. What else plays a role?
Those introductory offers. The 0% or super low APR deals, APR meaning annual percentage rate, your yearly interest. They sound great, but then that rate skyrockets after 6 months or a year. If you've built up a balance, bam, you hit with huge interest charges. And cash advances. The guide really flags these as dangerous. High fees right off the bat, and the interest starts ticking immediately. No grace period like with purchases.
It's not just the numbers and the terms, though. The psychology behind it feels, I don't know, just as important, maybe more so.
Oh, absolutely. Arguably more powerful. The delayed pain of payment is a huge factor. You're not handing over physical cash, so your brain doesn't register the ouch of spending in the same way. It feels less tangible, less immediate. And those reward systems we mentioned, cashback, points, they act like little psychological pats on the back. They validate the spending. You feel smart, like you're getting something back, even if you end up paying way more in interest later. It can trick you.
That's so true. You focus on the points, forget about the 30-something% interest rate waiting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guide also points to social pressure, keeping up appearances, funding a certain lifestyle. Credit cards make that seem possible, at least for a while. It fuels that lifestyle inflation, often built on debt.
And this is where that specific statistic from the guide really lands. What was that average interest rate they found for Pakistan?
Yeah, it's stark. Over 38% annually. That's based on State Bank of Pakistan data for 2025.
Over 38%. Just let that sink in for a moment.
Right. It's huge. And the guide points out that's more than 3 times what you might earn in a typical savings account. That huge gap is basically the engine driving the trap. It works against you incredibly fast, while savings work for you quite slowly.
That 38% figure is genuinely shocking. It makes the real cost of carrying even a small balance incredibly clear. And it's not just about the compound interest itself, is it?
No, not at all. Financially, yes, compound interest is brutal. The guide has that example. Rs 100,000 debt at 38%. It more than doubles to over Rs 210,000 in just 3 years. But then there's the minimum payment trap itself. Making only those minimums means you might be paying for years, maybe over a decade, paying back way, way more in total interest than you ever borrowed. Plus, you've got late fees and penalties. Miss a payment and bam, more charges get tacked on. It adds up fast.
And then there's the toll it takes beyond the bank account. The guide talks about the emotional and mental side effects,
which can be absolutely devastating. Constant anxiety is a big one. That background hum of worry about balances, due dates, like Aisha felt. Money stress is also a major driver of relationship strain. It causes so many arguments between couples. And fundamentally, it shrinks your world. It limits your life opportunities. Things like buying property, starting a business, even just traveling freely, they get delayed, maybe even derailed completely because your money is tied up paying off past debt.
And those ripples spread even further into your social life, your work life.
They really do. There's often a significant stigma attached to debt. People feel ashamed. They keep it secret, which makes it harder to seek help or support. And all that stress, it absolutely impacts work productivity. It's hard to concentrate, hard to perform your best when you've got this huge financial worry hanging over you.
Okay, so the problem is clear, it's real, it has many layers. But the good news is the guide doesn't just leave us there. It's packed with practical advice on how to avoid the trap or, climb out if you're already in it. What are the key strategies?
Well, it really starts with building smarter habits around how you actually use the card. The absolute bedrock advice is treat it like cash, or like a debit card, essentially. Only put purchases on the card that you could pay for right now with money you actually have sitting in your bank account.
That's a huge mental shift, isn't it? Away from thinking of it as extra money or borrowing power.
It really is. And it's critical, because if you adopt that mindset, the next step becomes much easier. Pay your full balance every single month. That's a guaranteed way to avoid paying any interest at all. If you find you can't consistently do that, it's a red flag that you're spending beyond your means. The guide also recommends automating payments, at least the minimum, so you never miss a due date and hurt your score or get hit with fees. And absolutely essentially, track your spending. You have to know where your money is going. Use budgeting tools, apps like YNAB or Mint, or maybe local ones like Finja are mentioned. Knowledge is key.
And picking the right card in the first place, that matters too, right?
Definitely. The guide suggests prioritizing cards with a low APR, especially if you think you might occasionally carry a balance. Though again, the goal is always zero balance if possible.
Yeah.
Also, look for cards with no annual fee, unless the rewards are so good and you use them so effectively that they clearly outweigh the fee. That takes careful calculation. And always read the fine print. Look for transparent terms. You don't want any nasty surprises with hidden charges.
Okay, and one really crucial piece of advice, a safety net really, is building that emergency fund.
Yes, the guide calls this basically non-negotiable. You need a buffer. They recommend aiming for 3 to 6 months worth of essential living expenses saved up. This fund is what protects you from life's curveballs, job loss, unexpected medical bill, car trouble. It means you don't have to reach for the high-interest credit card when you're already stressed and vulnerable.
And underlying all these strategies, it seems, is just being informed. Education.
It's the foundation, absolutely. Education and awareness are vital. Actively seek out financial literacy resources. Maybe attend a workshop if you can. The guide highlights a telling statistic from a 2024 Global Financial Literacy Survey. Financially literate individuals are 3 times less likely to carry high-interest debt.
3 times less likely. Wow, that statistic alone really shows the power of just understanding this stuff. The guide also includes some really compelling real-life stories, which I think helps make it feel less abstract and more possible to change things.
They do. They share Hamza's story. He's 34 from Lahore. He got a deep trouble ours, $450,000 in credit card debt back in 2023. His is a real trap to triumph narrative.
450,000 rupees, that's a huge hole. How did he manage to pull himself out?
He had to get serious. First, he just stopped using the cards completely, cut them off. Then he was strategic. He managed to consolidate that high-interest credit card debt into a personal loan with a significantly lower interest rate. That made a big difference. He even picked up a part-time job specifically to throw extra money at the debt. He was really focused. And the result? Debt-free in 18 months.
That's incredible. 18 months from that level of debt shows what focus can do, and his whole outlook changed, didn't it?
Completely. The guide quotes him saying, "Getting out of credit card debt gave me my life back. I now teach others how to avoid the same mistakes." It's a powerful message about the freedom you regain. Then there's Sana's story from Islamabad, which is more about prevention, staying out of the trap from the get-go.
Okay, so how did she approach it?
She's 25, and she set up strong rules for herself early on. She decided she'd only use her card for very specific things, fuel and groceries, basically essentials she knew she'd buy anyway.
Right.
But here's the key habit. She paid off the balance weekly, not just monthly.
Weekly? Wow, that's real diligence, staying right on top of it.
It really is. And it worked incredibly well for her. By 2025, she'd built an excellent credit score, over 780, and crucially, she never paid a single rupee in interest. Her quote sums it up nicely. "Discipline is more important than the credit limit."
Those are genuinely inspiring examples. Now, the guide is smart enough to know people will have counter-arguments, right? Reasons they think this advice doesn't quite apply to them. It addresses some common ones.
Yes, it tackles them head on. A very frequent one is, "But I need a credit card to build my credit score."
And the guide's response.
It says, yes, using credit responsibly is how you build a credit history. But, and this is the crucial part, you absolutely do not need to carry a balance and pay that crippling interest to do it. You build your score by using the card, yes, but then paying the full balance off, on time, every single month. That shows responsible usage.
Okay, what about the classic? I only use it for emergencies.
The guide is quite direct on this one. Hearing that argument, it suggests, is actually a sign of a different problem. The lack of a proper emergency fund. Relying on high-interest credit during a crisis just makes a bad situation worse. It digs you deeper into debt exactly when you can least afford it.
Right. Makes sense. Then there's the rewards argument. But the points, the cash back, surely that offsets any interest I might pay.
That's usually wishful thinking, according to the guide. That logic only works if you pay your balance in full every single month, without fail. If you're carrying a balance at, say, 38% interest, any rewards you earn are wiped out many, many times over by the interest charges. The math just doesn't work in your favor.
Okay. And the last common justification. It's the only way I can afford big purchases.
Here, the guide encourages looking at alternatives first. Things like personal loans often have much lower interest rates than credit cards. Plus, they offer a structured repayment plan. You know exactly when it will be paid off. That can be a much healthier way to finance something big than just putting it on plastic and letting interest pile up indefinitely.
So this deep dive into the side-by-side guide, it's really laid bare both the dangers and the opportunities with credit cards. But the core message seems to be the card itself isn't inherently good or bad.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway from the source. A credit card is just a tool. Like any tool, it can be used constructively or destructively. Its impact, whether it helps you or hurts you, really comes down entirely to how you manage it, how you choose to use it.
Which really puts the control back where it belongs with you, the user. By understanding the psychology, like we discussed, recognizing those warning signs of debt creeping up, and actively putting these smart habits into practice, you really can leverage the convenience, maybe even the perks of credit without falling into that awful trap of debt.
And avoiding the trap, it's about so much more than just saving money on interest, even though that's huge. It's really about reclaiming your peace of mind, isn't it? Protecting your future ambitions, staying in control of your own financial story.
Absolutely. And the guide really urges taking action, like right now. Take an honest look at how you're using your cards. Set clear, firm limits for yourself, spending limits, repayment goals, and commit to learning continuously. Use resources like SideBySide. Keep educating yourself. It seems it's less about dramatically cutting up cards, maybe, and more about cutting out those detrimental habits.
That's a great way to put it. It's about the habits.
So thinking about everything we've covered today, the mechanics of the trap, the true costs, those smart strategies, the real stories, and considering that getting this right is ultimately about building better financial habits, not just about the card itself. Here's something to think about. What's one specific financial habit, maybe a budgeting technique or tool mention, that you could explore starting today, right now, to build a stronger, more secure financial future for yourself? Worth considering.